The two championship favorites in the regular season now find themselves in a desperate spot to do better here in the first round. Do we have championship studs or championship duds? We're talking Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson here on Stuck in the Catch Fence. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Stuck in the Catch Fence. My name is Ryan Peters, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host who will be in Brownstown this weekend, Travis.
Yep, we're going to go give it a shot, see what happens. We made some changes, and we had to do a lot of changes this past week. We finally got to do a complete race besides my seatbelt coming undone. So we made some good changes and see what it does. It could be a lot or it could be really bad. So we'll see.
Well, hopefully you get some good luck on your side. It's about time. Like you said, you've been fast. You just haven't had very much luck.
Yeah, like I said, we changed some springs, a couple shocks around. We found out we had like a bent steering arm essentially. So wasn't getting my, believe it or not, race car drivers do turn right. So I wasn't able to turn enough right for the car to straighten out. So I think we fixed those issues though.
Well, unfortunately, your favorite driver overcorrected a little bit too hard to the right and had a scary wreck this past weekend. And he actually is the subject of today's conversation. It is championship studs or duds, ? And two drivers that have, I believe the NASCAR quote was they've been racing right next to each other 27% of the season. That is Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, who have found themselves next to each other competing for the regular season championship. Denny Hamlin had the huge penalty that knocked his chances out of winning the regular season championship. Kyle Larson, who just announced that he's going to run back the Indy 500, but this time will prioritize the Coca-Cola 600. I'm sure recency bias has nothing to do with that. We're going to talk about whether these guys have an opportunity to turn around this early season playoff. Both of them not driving well as of recent. So we're going to go ahead, dive right in and see, is this just one of those times where, it looks bad, but they'll turn it all the way around? Or should we induce panic if you're one of those two drivers? So, Travis, let's go ahead and start off with Mr. Kyle Larson. Ever since he made the comment that he thinks he is the best driver in the world, he has not proven that. He has had a hard time finishing races. It's not because he hasn't been fast, but we've seen him wreck a lot. And, things that we've talked about before, actually, really what you talked about to me and Joe in the group chat one time is you just feel like he's pushing the car too far. And I don't know if it's a Chevy thing. Oddly enough, Kyle Busch feels like he's the best Chevy driver in the last 3 weeks, or if it's just an overall something going on with Hendrick, because they really haven't put themselves in the position where we typically seen, and other Chevy competitors haven't as well. It's been really dominated by Ford here as of late. But I heard a quote, Brett Griffin says this on their podcast, Door Bumper Clear. Drivers run with the most talent, run out of talent the most. Do you just feel like Kyle Larson's pushing it too hard? Is it just a string of bad luck? Or is this something we're just going to laugh at when he ends up in the round of 4?
I think it's just a bump in the road, right? I mean, we talk about that a lot of times, people find ways to do stuff. And I think it comes down to it. Like I said in our group chat, like after he lost Darlington and stuff like that, like I put in when he was dominating, I literally put it in the middle of it and says, I bet you anyone $1,000 that he doesn't win this race. Sure enough.
You did. With about 50 laps left, you did say that.
Yep. And I said, I'll double down on it again. I said, I guarantee he doesn't win this again. And I just look at, personally, I think he look at his last 4 Michigan, pretty good car, stepped on his wee-wee, he wrecked out, right? We go to Daytona, kind of got in the mix and stuff, but, after they fixed the car, he really led some laps, right? Mm-hmm. But typical Kyle Larson fashion at super speedway races doesn't mix well with him. So we knew that was out the window. Goes to Darlington, dominated by far the best car, right? Doesn't finish the race, he gets beat out on a restart by a guy with 9-lap older tires. Then we go to Atlanta, who he looked like he had a good car, right, and just stepped out and overcorrected, right? He said he had a tire going down. I don't believe it. I'll be honest with you. I'm the biggest Kyle Larson fan, but I'm also the biggest critic of him because he just gets everyone so hyped up about some of this stuff. And I said in the group chat, I was like, when do you ever see him really make, like, does he make mistakes on the dirt track? Yes, but how often do you see him in a dirt race have the best car and not win? When
Right.
Kyle Larson steps into a dirt race and has the best car, there is a 99% chance he's winning that race. If he steps to the racetrack and doesn't have the best car in the dirt track, there's still a 50-50 shot. He's gonna there's a chance of winning still. I just look at I hate to blame Larson, but I also just look at the other Hendrick drivers, right? Yeah, did they have a lot of wins as a team? Yes. I think in the back of my head, I think they have the most teams as an organization, right? Larson has 4, Elliott with 1. There's
Bowman with 1.
4, 5, 8. They have 8 as an
Yeah,
organization.
3
So
with William Byron, who hasn't won since what, April?
yeah, so I think it's a partial Hendrick thing. I think Larson's trying to get the most out of his car, and he's paying the price for it.
Yeah, and don't hear what we're not saying. Like Hendrick is still really good. It's
Yes.
just not what we typically are used to seeing from the beginning of the year, and it's really just been Kyle, dominating. And one thing that I think gets lost too, Travis, is these guys aren't used to point racing. You only point race at the last 10 races of the year. That's where you literally are trying to point race. We'll talk about Denny Hamlin and his horrific strategy and how important point racing is. And, I think that plays a lot into it. I feel like, when you're trying to point race, there's this ability of don't screw things up. And then there's this other ability of don't get screwed up. And, I feel like that plays a major factor into it. But when it comes to Kyle, man, it just feels like I think we'll laugh at this. I really do. I think he definitely should be one that tries to point race this weekend. Just go ahead and secure that points and don't worry about the win because you have to make a decision. Do you want to win the race? Do you want to points race when we go to Watkins Glen because we now are going back to the stage cautions? But I feel like every driver does this. Every driver has their law. You know, Tyler Reddick wasn't good at the beginning of the year. Brad Keselowski after like 4 races was 36 in points. Behind people like Harrison Burton, behind part-time drivers, and I just feel like we're in that bump. But thankfully for Kyle Larson, he's good enough to overcome this bump. But I do agree with you. I do think he is trying to push a little bit of the envelope, and at times that's what's always bit Kyle Larson. It's never the talent, is you gotta have consistency. That's the thing with Ryan Blaney. He didn't win every race last year, but he damn was consistent in the top 5
He
every
showed up
single
the
time.
last 5 races. He
Yeah.
made it the last 5. And I look at it this way. And what got me in my head was at Darlington. And I listened to their how they talk, and I listened to stuff. And Larson, after the first stage, was like, where are we on points with Reddick? Where are we on points with this? How are we looking here? And it's like, well, how about we race? Like you're dominating. If you win to go out there and win the race and you do have stuff, you don't have any issues. And when that last stage, I Daniels was like, hey, we're in lead here. If we stay here and Reddick doesn't get any more positions, we're going to win the regular season. And here we are talking about, man, he lost the regular season by a given. He gave it a one race,
Cushion.
lead cushion. But like I think about all the places that fastest car in Darlington doesn't win. Michigan has a good car, wrecks out. You're like, oh, Chicago, fast car there, wrecks out. Like I think about all these places, and it's just the typical Kyle Larson. And I know, like in our group chat, you got best driver in the world. Like probably yes, still hands down. Like he could wreck out. He could wreck out every race from here till the end of the season, and we'd still consider him, a God-given talent. But I just think there's a point in you. It's like last year. That's why he didn't probably get a championship last year, right? And the year before, we talk about that stuff, but it comes down to, and he said what this year, he wanted to be less wrecking. I think he's wrecked more this year, right? So
as of late, I don't know during the middle, but
yeah, I and I told you guys in the group chat, I could think of 5 races on top of my head. 5. Where he had the best car and wrecked. Or I could think of probably some other races where he just didn't get a finish that he deserved.
Didn't put himself in the position
Yeah.
to win a race,
You
right?
know,
Because that's big now.
and that's what, like Joe says, like, what races? I named 5, and, you were like, yeah, that's probably about right. So I think he's fine. I think he comes out there, Watkins Glen. It's going to be hard because he's won on a road course this year. Was really good at Sonoma. Usually translates to Watkins Glen to a certain degree. New tire. That's got a lot of fall off. I think
Which
he'll
to
be
me
fine.
is good for Larson. I
Yes.
think that's a good thing.
I think we'll be okay. So it's a matter of let's see who's in the finds a seam. Look at that. So it'll be okay. I really do. It's just a matter of, let's just finish races. He finishes races, he'll be okay. He'll be in that Final Four.
If anything less than a championship 4, is that disappointment?
I think, yeah. You talk about your talent, and you tell people that, you're the best race car driver in the world if you can get in anything, right? I think as amount of, I wouldn't even going to call it speed, but just the amount of opportunities that he's had this year to win and stuff. I think anymore, if Larson doesn't go to the championship 4, I think it's a bust season. And I don't think those I don't think those expectations are on anyone else, right? And like I think of Denny Hamlin.
Not anymore. No.
I look at Denny Hamlin like, yeah, that's your expectation, but you haven't won a championship, right? You look at C. Bell, he's been there the last 3 years, but I wouldn't say that's an expectation every year now. Ryan Blaney for sure. I think a win for him is still getting to the Elite 8, and those people don't have those expectations. And I think Kyle Larson is the only one in NASCAR that has those expectations, right? So
I think Chase Elliott fans have those expectations, but I feel like with this next gen car with Chase Elliott, he hasn't done enough to prove that he deserves that anymore. I compare Kyle Larson to this guy right here. Between 2014 and 2019, if my guy didn't make it to the championship 4, I felt like it was a rough year.
I agree.
Because we were winning 5 to 8 races a year, and I feel like Kyle Larson is still in the same vein. You got to put yourself in the championship 4. Whatever happens in the championship 4, you can't control.
But you know what the difference is between those 2014 and 2019 seasons and Kyle Larson from 2021 to 2024?
What's that? Kyle
Busch, can you name 5 races on top of your head that was like, you know what? Kyle Busch should have won that race.
I can name Las Vegas when Alex Bowman backed into a win. That was famous for that.
But I'm thinking you talk about we're talking about Kyle Larson 5 races a year.
That was strategy. Right.
We're talking about Kyle Larson 5 races a year. We're talking about Kyle Busch maybe 5 races over like a 8 to 10 year period, right? And that's the difference between a lot of this too. Is that's what's frustrating on my part. That's why I got so ticked off in the group chat because I'm like, what are we doing?
The difference between Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch is if Kyle Busch, let's say, I didn't have to worry about him on the restart, as long as he didn't get out strategized, like he's in the lead, everybody takes tires, he doesn't, or the vice versa type thing. I feel like Kyle Busch won those races, and I sent a stat that like Kyle Busch, if you lead over half the race, what percentage do you win? Kyle Larson was the worst at that, but Kyle Busch was like 3rd or 4th from worst. Much different sample size, but it's just so hard with this next gen car.
I get it.
It's also hard, Travis, when every single race it feels like goes to overtime, and that plays a big role. Like if we didn't have, if that goes green at Darlington, Kyle Larson wins.
Yep.
But
all those restarts, it was unaggressive, and I think that's what maybe takes off of my head is people go like, oh, he's like super aggressive, and I'm like, no, like he's unaggressive, but then he puts himself in positions where other people around him are aggressive, and then he has to be aggressive, and then it's like
I agree with that
Right. And
1000%.
that's the thing that like makes me mad is they like, oh, like puts himself in these positions all the time. Like, no, like he does, yes, he puts himself in positions because he gets unaggressive. He's not aggressive because he's like, I'll make up these spots, and then people around him are aggressive, and it's like Daniel Suarez at Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was unaggressive. Daniel Suarez took advantage of his unaggressiveness, put Kyle Larson in a bad spot, and then goes on and Suarez hits him and takes him out of the car. It might have been the best car of the whole season by any race, right? So
Yeah.
I would just say, like you said, I don't see any issues if we struggle at Watkins Glen and don't get the points like you just said. I would be a little worried,
Yeah.
but I think you get through Watkins Glen and then you're gonna be okay after that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if he can get stage points, if he can top five to the first two stages of Watkins Glen, he'll absolutely make it through. I just look at it like you. I don't want my driver to struggle to get to the round of 12. That should be a
Yep.
given. When
Yep.
you're the top of the points lead, you should automatically make it into the round of 12 without me feeling sick to my stomach. And if I'm a Kyle Larson fan like you do, I kind of feel sick. I've always had this like internal rivalry because Kyle Larson was on his way up, Kyle Busch was on his way down, and I always, kind of it was nothing personable. I've always
Yeah.
enjoyed Larson as a person, but Kyle Larson's always been the biggest threat to the next best driver in NASCAR. That's surpassed. That's already moved by. I can't hold on to that any longer. But I do want to see Kyle Larson, like when we give him this mantle, like I feel like when Kyle Busch was labeled the best driver, one of the best drivers in NASCAR, it wasn't consensus. I feel like more people would have said, well, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Tony Stewart, like you had all these people that were still listed in there. And I feel like today, because of the expectations, exactly what you said, like, yeah, he's the only one we expect to get to the final four.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he is the best driver. And what's funny about that is parody's never been stronger in NASCAR than ever before. So it's kind of silly to say that. But
So,
I look at Kyle Larson. I'm like, if you want to cement your legacy, I want to see more, at least on my end, and I can't quantify it for Kyle Larson, care about when you don't do well. Like I see him look bummed, but I didn't ever see Kyle Busch wreck Travis and go, fuck, he just doesn't feel like he cares. I didn't have to worry about that.
yeah.
He was pissed. He was upset. And I felt like it helped me as a fan going, man, he gave it everything he had today. And
Yep.
if you're Kyle Larson times, I watch his interviews and I feel like you feel that way, Travis. You watch him and he goes, yeah, man, it just kind of sucks. But, I got to thank my team and blah, blah. Like, and Kyle Busch is just like, I don't want to fucking be here right now. I don't want
Yes.
to do any of this. Like, I'm pissed. I'm done. Let's get the F out of here and let's move on.
I think of myself like in my shoes, right? As a race car driver, when I came in back into the pits, I sat there and looked at my car and wrecked or whatever, and I'm just like, it sucks. Like I feel bad for the people around me, and I think Kyle Larson sees that in himself, right? Where like he had to spend all this money and he hates having people fix his stuff, right? And I think where Bush, although he owned his own truck team, I don't think he cared as much about the fact of people fixing his stuff. Or he was out there to win races. He was going to go as fast as he can. It was records or checkers, right? And
Especially early, yes.
yes. So, but yeah, I personally I don't think we have to worry about Larson, especially if he just gets some, he walks out with 25 points at Watkins Glen, he'll probably go on to the next
Last thing I'll ask you, like between 1 and 5, what's your number about how much you're worried making it to the final four right now?
How worried? Like 5 being like most worried?
5, like I'm freaking the F out. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Ask me after this coming week. I would say
I
I will say I freak out probably every week about, and it's like as a Kyle Larson fan, if he's on the top 10, it is so dang disappointing. Like if he's not even top 5, I'm like, he sucks.
I remember those days,
he's
bro,
god
and I
awful.
know exactly
And
what
I'm
you're
like,
talking about.
he is god awful. Like he shouldn't even be in a cup ride, right? And then I would say right now, after this past week, I'm I'm probably at like a 3.2, right?
Okay, I'm a
I'm
1.5.
I am not
I'm a
worried, but
1.5.
it's also I'm above the worriness.
Yeah,
Just a little
my
bit, little
my
bit.
eyebrows raised. That's it. My eyebrow. I'm like, okay, let's
I'm at a,
zone back in here.
that's a rough like 63%. So I'm like at 63, 64% worried.
So the next driver we're going to talk about, and somebody else who wrecked by themselves at Michigan after being in first or second place. Maybe they were in first
Second.
place. Second place, yeah, is Denny Hamlin, who has watched his own team run better than he has as of late with Tyler Reddick. I am completely baffled with what we saw at Atlanta. I have tried to do everything I can to understand it. I simply can't. I just don't. Atlanta's hard to pass. Like if it was Watkins Glen, I think I'd feel like I'd understand more, but I still don't. Like if he didn't take stage points because he wanted to win, but then like he complained about his car, how terrible it was the entire time, so then he still didn't push it. Austin Cindric was out there scoring the most points on the weekend, and Denny Hamlin just took a sidestep. I honest to God, Travis, feel like at this time you cannot be passive because as soon as you think you have something locked up, you will get screwed. Points are the most important thing. You have to get points on a weekly basis, not just for now, but for later. You have to set yourself up. Get those 5 points by winning that carry on. And to me, I'm not all in on Denny anymore. I predicted him to win the championship, but there is just some bad juju going on, and I feel like in the back of his head, Travis is coming again. Don't screw this up. Don't fuck
Mhm.
this up. And I feel like we're there.
I think you look. I think of it like a basketball term, right? Mm. You say you play to win, not play to lose, right?
Right.
And they were there to not lose.
They play prevent defense all the
Yes,
entire last
they
ride.
played not to lose,
Yes.
right? And I think they were trying to run that as like a 2007 to 2012 ish restricted plate race. We have like 6 or 7 cars in the back. They kind of just waiting for the big one. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that nowadays with this
No.
next gen. It's so hard. You can't make the moves you could make with those cars. You can't change lanes, and you can't go from 30th to first in 5 laps.
Especially not at Atlanta.
Yep.
It's not that wide, man.
Yep. So I think you look at personally, I'm not too worried about Denny. They're gonna figure it out. Darlington, that was one of the first times I've seen a weakness in that team
Mm-hmm.
because he usually runs so good there, and he wasn't anything special.
No.
Michigan, he had a fast car. Um, Watkins Glen's not his best place.
No.
Really not. He's not really great. He's a good qualifier there.
The best thing for Denny is if the tires do have 3 to 4
Yes,
second fall
that
off
is.
because
He's by
it'll
far
be
the
those
best.
guys that rise
Yes.
up.
Yep. He will be one of the best there. I mean, I would even say he's probably the best tire conserver in NASCAR, right?
Him and
So,
Brad Keselowski, I
yep.
think, are one
So
and two.
I think we look at that and, you know, he has a shot. So, and they do some other stuff where they don't have to make this big wide turn out of one. And, you know, that's good. That's good for Hamlin. So, um, I think I'm not pressing a panic button on him yet. But if we go to Watkins Glen and he doesn't get points for the stages, doesn't get points for that, I might be looking at that panic button. But it's Denny Hamlin; he'll be fine.
Yeah, he definitely needs to take points into Bristol because he's really good at Bristol. So anything that he can get a cushion at Watkins Glen is a bonus. Obviously, we saw the biggest tire race of the season. He won the damn thing. Unfortunately, that actually put him in the position he is now because that was the engine that didn't get sent off to NASCAR. It got sent off to TRD, and they screwed the pooch on that. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like I talked about slumps. The 11 car has been in a slump for a minute. Like it's not like a 3 or 4 race slump. Like this is a slump. And I
Yep.
think it just gets compounded watching your own team dominate. And I still feel, Travis, that plays a factor. Like at this
Yep.
time, at the beginning of the year, I don't think it matters. But at this time of the year, like I feel like it just absolutely is so difficult to play both sides of the fence. And I remember during one of the races, I think it was Talladega, probably 3 years ago, he got on the radio and goes, "Where's Bubba?" And that's JGR radio. And it's like, dude, you're trying to win the race. Like,
Yep.
you can't worry about Bubba. And I still feel like now that Tyler Reddick wins the regular season championship, he's like, oh, crap. I have more pressure now than maybe ever because the team I own is outperforming me. And I can't let that happen. I feel like that creeps up in the back of the mind for somebody that hasn't been able to get it done in his mid 40s.
Yep. And I look at it this way. You look back at Ryan Blaney's championship run last year, right? Nowhere to be found
Literally
till
nowhere.
roughly the last 5-ish races,
I
right?
predicted him to be out in the round of 12, which was
I did
sad.
not see him. You take away the penalty, I think Texas, right? He had that penalty, or it was Las Vegas. He had that penalty, and he kind of got wiped away, and his points came back. Then he won Talladega when we went there. I just look at and go, what the what ifs, right? And then he was really good at Martinsville, and he was really good at Phoenix, championship winner. So
Yep.
I'm not putting a panic button on Denny Hamlin. He's had a last couple rough races, same as Larson, right? So I'm not no panic button, but I think he needs to have a decent run at Martinsville because I mean at Watkins Glen, but the whole tire situation at Bristol, it's a big what if still. What if what if someone goes there really aggressive and they don't have the tire wear? They're going to be really good. But what if they go down on that track and they have the tire wear? Denny Hamlin's probably going to be pretty solid. So I'm going to call Bristol a little bit of a wild card still based off everything. But,
If
he'll
you're
be fine.
3.2 with Kyle Larson, what are you with Denny Hamlin?
Whew. I mean, I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not going to say I'm not worried about him. I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want Denny Hamlin to be in the Final Four if I was like being a Kyle Larson fan. If Kyle Busch was in the playoffs, I wouldn't want Denny Hamlin in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say his button right now would be probably a 4. He's got more stress than what he probably thought he would have in the first round.
Yeah, I agree.
He's got more stress than what he thought. I think he kind of thought, just like Larson thought, yeah, top 20 finishes in the first 3, I'll be just fine.
And you have to think too, like he's been kicked out due to Hail Melon. He's had a hard time advancing past Martinsville. I just feel like Travis in the back of his head, once the penalty hits from the Bristol race, just now, like if this would have happened 5 months ago when this actually happened, I don't think it's a big deal. And we got the rest of the year. We'll drive a little bit differently. Let's get points.
Momentum.
But right now, literally right now, the worst time to go. Here we go again.
Momentum.
Here we go again. So
I
just feel like that plays a factor.
I look at it if somehow Denny Hamlin doesn't make it to the round of 8, I'm not gonna say his career's over because he'll still race, but I think a championship hope is probably out the window. I think that was like it's like a beating a horse, like a dead horse, right?
Yeah.
You beat it a little bit more, then maybe have some life in it, but then you give him that one last pop and he's done.
Yeah. I hope what we see is a really, really good race at Watkins Glen. We're going to go ahead and close it out here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of the Stuck in the Nosebleeds. We've been doing a little bit of that, just trying out something different, talking about other sports as well. But obviously we're still going to be here for all NASCAR related things. So hopefully Watkins Glen can deliver. We haven't had a road course deliver in a while. So that would be really, really nice and to have some actual drama at a road course. But Travis, thank you so much for joining me again. My name is Ryan Peters. This is Stuck in the Catch Fence. Join us next time. Stay safe and God bless.